You have been warned. As I was saying, you are a water carrier in ancient Rome. You wake each morning before sunrise, the sky barely blushing with the promise of dawn. Your small house, shared with several other families, is dim with the lingering shadows of night. The air is thick with the aroma of wood smoke and something else, the faint reek of stale urine used for cleaning. Outside, the cobblestone streets are slick with dew, reflecting the flickering light of oil lamps, still burning out late into the night. The cold seeps into your sandals. You reach down to tie the worn leather thongs, and your fingers trace the dampness left over from yesterday's labor. They are simple sandals, practical and strong, but the leather chafes at your heels. Beside you sit two empty buckets, their iron bands creaking slightly as you lift them. Smooth and even in your hands, they are manageable, almost light. But once filled, they will become anchors weighing down your shoulders, slowing your step, bending your back. Each one holds about 25 pounds of water, the weight of a small child, or the bronze helmet of a Roman soldier. For you, this weight is a familiar burden. You know its pull on your muscles, how it saps your energy, drop by precious drop. The sound of a nearby hammer echoes in the early morning stillness. Joining the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith and the distant rumble of a stonemason's chisel, you step outside, joining the steady stream of humanity that flows through the city. Most move purposefully, merchants on their way to market, laborers seeking work, artisans returning from their workshops. Some hurry along, faces buried beneath their cloaks, hiding from the chill, or perhaps from one another. In the distance, a vendor calls out, his voice echoing off the tall apartment buildings. The aqueduct that provides Rome with fresh water is miles beyond the city walls, but here at ground level, every drop must be fetched, carried, and delivered. Even the emperor relies on you. Every bath he enjoys, every fountain he reclines beside, owes its bounty to your labor. You are invisible, yet essential. You are a water carrier in ancient Rome. A few paces ahead, you see the familiar outline of the public fountain, its surface shimmering faintly in the dim light. Already a line has formed. Housewives with small clay jars, their faces lined and weathered, stand beside older men with cracked and mended earthenware pots. Further back, children with clay pitchers patiently wait their turn, their youthful faces earnest and intent. And then there are others like you, professional water carriers, who make their living bringing water to homes without wells. You join the line, shifting your weight from one foot to the other, breathing in the damp chill of the morning air. It mingles with the sweet scent of orange blossoms and the less pleasant aroma of stale urine used for cleaning. The fountain trickles steadily. Its water is a gift from the aqueduct that arches high above the city, delivering fresh water from springs miles away.
Oh, yeah.
But here at ground level, every drop is carefully measured and sometimes bitterly contested.
Aquarii.
The old woman in front of you draws a sharp breath and steps forward. Her jar fills with water. She straightens and turns away, clutching her prize as if it were a newborn babe. A young mother with a babe on her hip steps forward. She dips the jar, watching intently as water spills within. With a nod to the fountain's caretaker, she takes her prize and moves away. At last, it is your turn.
Ow.
You step forward and lower the buckets, feeling the rough stone beneath your damp feet. Dipping them into the cool basin, you can hear the splash of water climbing up the sides of the bucket. When they are full, the weight shifts instantly. You lift them free. The second bucket follows. The weight settles onto your shoulders, and you straighten, careful not to spill a drop. You take a deep breath and begin your journey home. Your pace quickens, eager to reach the shaded sanctuary of your home before the noonday sun. You navigate the bustling city with practiced ease, weaving through pedestrians, vendors, and the occasional chariot. The water sloshes gently with each step, keeping time with your heartbeat. As you walk, you scan the rooftops, searching for the distinctive markings that indicate a well. If you see a circle outlined in red paint, you know that you need bring no water. To that house, however, the more common square-painted blue means that you must do your work. Dodging a stray dog, you quicken your pace again. You recognize the house with its faded purple paint and broken window pane. You pause beside the faded awning, tying the leaden buckets to the ring in the wall. You rap sharply on the wood panel, announcing your arrival. There's a shuffling of feet inside, then a creak as the door opens. A haggard-looking woman appears, her eyes hollow, her tunic hanging loosely on her thin frame. She reaches out, drops a coin in your palm, and gestures toward the buckets. You catch the glint of sunlight on metal and duck instinctively as a small pot is hurled at your head. It misses you by a hand's breadth and clatters to the ground. The woman reaches out again, this time dropping a small cloth bag beside the coins. Without a word, you pick it up, heft it, and nod curtly. She steps aside and you pass through the doorway. Inside, the courtyard is a riot of smells. From the privy in the corner, you detect the stench of stale waste. Nearby, an overturned pot of basil and mint offers a pungent counterpoint to the cloying sweetness of stale urine. You find the well and lean heavily against the side of the house, letting the weight of the buckets pull you down. After a brief respite, you sling them back onto your shoulders and retrace your steps through the city. In the distance, the rumble of chariot wheels echoes off the tall apartment buildings. Charioteers shout at pedestrians in the street, urging them to move aside. The sun climbs higher, turning the white marble of the Colosseum to shimmering gold. You dodge a stray dog, its ribs showing plainly through its matted fur. You detour around a group of men playing dice, their faces flushed with excitement and cheap wine. Up ahead, a peddler calls out, hawking his wares to passers-by. He catches sight of you and shouts, "Hey, water carrier, what's your hurry? Have you had your fill of water?" You ignore him and quicken your pace. From somewhere near the forum, the blaring of a trumpet pierces the air. In the distance, you hear the murmur of voices and the scrape of a chair being dragged across stone. Are they talking about you? Do they know how hard you work, how much you carry, how many times you walk this route? The water sloshes with each step, a steady, soothing rhythm. As you walk, you glance up at the aqueducts that crown the hills around Rome, silently giving life to this sprawling city. You are a water carrier in ancient Rome. You return to the fountain, the familiar routine calming you after a long day. You watch a young boy kneel beside the basin, cupping his hands and splashing the water about. His laughter rings out, clear and sweet. You dip your buckets into the cool water, feeling its coolness revive your aching arms. You straighten, wincing as the weight settles onto your shoulders. One more trip, one more delivery. As the sun dips low in the sky, painting the clouds with streaks of orange and red, you reach the final house of your route. You tie the buckets to the wall ring and knock on the door. The work is nearly done. You think of the evening meal waiting for you at home, the chance to rest before doing it all again tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow you will be chosen to bring water to the emperor's baths. Maybe tomorrow, just maybe, you will be noticed. The door opens, and a haggard old man stands before you. His tunic is threadbare and his sandals are held together with string. He reaches out, drops a small coin in your palm, and steps aside. Without a word, you enter the courtyard, crossing to the well. As you untie the buckets, the old man speaks for the first time. "You know," he says, his voice raspy with disuse. "There is a story told of a water carrier who brought water to the emperor. He was just a simple man, but the emperor noticed him. The emperor offered him land, a noble title, even his daughter's hand in marriage. And the water carrier, he said, 'I am happy with my lot in life. I do not want land or titles or the emperor's daughter. All I want is for the emperor to notice me.' You look up at the fading light, wondering if the emperor sees you. You are a water carrier in ancient Rome. What do you see? In the distance, the dome of the Pantheon, the arch of Septimius Severus, the shade of a colonnaded street. What do you hear? The chatter of merchants hawking their wares, the clip-clop of horses' hooves on the Via Sacra, the rumble of a passing chariot. But most importantly, the gurgle and splash of water cascading down the side of a hill. You hear it everywhere in Rome, the sound of water running through the pipes that bring fresh water into the city. It is 5 a.m., and you are about to start your day's work. The streets of Rome are not flat. They climb and twist. Some rise so steeply that stairs have been cut into the hillsides. Others are so long and uneven that only a donkey or a man with a large basket on his back can traverse them. You begin the ascent, your shoulders tightening, arms stretched, trying to find purchase with each step. The water sloshes in the buckets, spilling down the sides, darkening the dust beneath your feet. Every step requires control. Too fast and the buckets swing wildly. Too slow and your muscles burn with strain. The water splashes onto the stones, making them slick and testing your sure-footedness. The baskets scrape against one another, the rope between them creaking in protest. You pass by a fountain, its waters gushing from a marble lion's mouth. It is a monument to the power of Rome, a city that can harness the very lifeblood of nature to serve its people. For 8 hours you climb, your sandals slapping against stone darkened with spilled water. The sun climbs higher and higher in the sky, turning the stone to shimmering heat haze, and the water in your buckets, once fresh and cold from the mountain springs, grows warm and heavy. You pause on a step to wipe the sweat from your brow, allowing the old woman ahead of you to pass. She smiles at you, her face lined and weathered like an ancient piece of sculpture. She has walked these stairs thousands of times, you think, and the steps will be worn smooth beneath her feet. By midday, you will have climbed the same stairs dozens of times. We're halfway up the Palatine Hill now, the steepest part of the climb. Here the stairs are worn smooth by countless footsteps, each one eroding the solid stone. You pass a family, a mother holding a baby in a swaddling blanket. Her 2 older children skipping ahead of her, their laughter echoing in the stairwell. A dog barks from somewhere below. A cat, sleek and watchful, pads across the stairs ahead of you. The water in your bucket splashes against the stone, a constant reminder of the precious cargo you carry. The weight of the water makes each step more treacherous. You move slowly now, carefully. The rhythm of the climb becomes second nature to you. The top of the stairs, you pause to catch your breath. The view stretches before you, the Forum, the Colosseum, all of ancient Rome. For a moment, you forget the weight of your buckets. You forget the burning in your legs. You are more than just a water carrier. You are a part of the city, a living conduit of the aqueducts that bring water to the great city. You continue your journey, the sun high in the sky. Your sandals slap against the stone. Your tunic clings to your body, heavy and damp. The water in your buckets is warm now, the rope between them creaking softly. Around you, the city bustles with life. Senators stride purposefully, merchants hawk their wares, soldiers stand guard, but none of them will notice you. You are part of the rhythm of the city, unseen but essential. You are the water carrier. You bring life to the great city of Rome. You are invisible, yet you are everywhere. You are nothing, yet you are everything. You are the water carrier. This is the life of a water carrier in ancient Rome. Wake before sunrise, grab your 2 buckets, join the long line of other carriers at the public fountain. Dip your buckets into the cool water, and then carry them up the endless stairs to the roof terrace of your patroness house. Empty the buckets into the cistern, collect more water if needed, and then wait. Wait for the next patron to summon you for another delivery. Or maybe wait for the aqueducts to bring fresh water to the fountain. Or maybe wait for the emperor to decide that he wants to walk through the city unannounced and inspect the state of the aqueducts himself. You are a water carrier, an occupation as old as civilization itself. This is a necessary job, one that must be done, but there is little honor in it. There is little relief in this job. The pay is small, the effort endless. You queue again at the fountain, the line now longer, temper shorter. The sun beats down on your shoulders, and the air grows heavy with the smell of dust and sweat. You take your turn once more, dipping the buckets, lifting, adjusting, climbing. Wet sandals, endless stairs. The pattern repeats until your arms throb and your back feels as if it will bend permanently. Every so often, you will come across an interesting conversation, overhear gossip about the latest gladiator victory or the intrigues of the emperor's court. Maybe even catch the eye of a wealthy widow who needs water for her rooftop garden. But mostly it is silent work, solitary and repetitive. The hours drag by, the sky turns from blue to the color of dried blood, and still you climb. Still you wait. Still you carry water. When evening falls, you return home, your shoulders ache, your tunic stiff with dried water stains. Perhaps a small portion of fish, and you will sleep, not from peace, but from exhaustion. Tomorrow, it will be the same. The city does not rest, and neither do you. The water you carry is the very essence of life, indispensable for drinking, cooking, cleaning. Without it, the city cannot live. But you are not delivering water to the great baths or to the public fountains. No, your water goes to the rich, to the privileged few who can afford to pay for the privilege of having water delivered to their doors. To get water from the fountain to their rooftop cisterns, you are merely a cog in the great machine that keeps the city alive. And like all cogs, you are replaceable, expendable. You are a slave. You don't remember much about your life before. You were sold to the middleman when you were just a child. You remember the taste of freedom in your mouth, as sweet as the grapes you sometimes get to eat during the harvest season. You also remember the sting of the whip. You hear the shouts of the overseer in your nightmares, and you wake up gasping for breath. Being a water carrier is hard, back-breaking work, but it has its advantages. For one, you are outside most of the time, not stuck in some dank, dark corner of the house like the other slaves. You get to see the city, the forum, the Colosseum, the gardens of the wealthy. And every once in a while, you get to chat with the other carriers, compare notes, swap jokes. Sometimes, when the work is slow, you even get to play dice or throw the discus with the other men. There is a camaraderie among water carriers, a brotherhood born out of necessity and hard work. You are all in this together, suffering the same, enduring the same. In a way, you are free, freer than the other slaves anyway. But the freedom is an illusion. You are still a slave. You still belong to someone else. You still have no rights, no voice. If the aqueduct breaks, it is your back that will be broken trying to repair it. If the emperor decides to punish the city for a bad harvest, it is you who will be flogged for hoarding water. Still, the work must be done. So as the sun rises and sets and rises again, you will be there at the fountain, waiting, hoping, carrying, enduring. The city needs water, and you are the one who delivers it. Our nameless aqueduct worker starts his day at the appointed meeting place. He has come with other boys from the same neighborhood, all dependents of the state, all dependent on the state for food and lodging. The master educator is absent, off visiting a construction site or perhaps arguing with farmers whose land the aqueduct crosses. This man is in charge, and he assigns the tasks for the day. Some are simple, like gathering the loose stones that litter the roadbed and throwing them back into the ditch from which they came. Others are more dangerous. Loose bricks are hauled up the side of the aqueduct, risking a fall into the ditch below or onto the road. And sometimes the aqueduct worker climbs onto the roof of the aqueduct to inspect the flow of water through the leaden pipes that run along the top. If a joint leaks or a pipe bursts, the water will pour out onto the roof and cascade down onto the road below. And so the aqueduct worker must be ready to patch it up quickly before the precious water is lost. This job requires no special skill, just a quick wit and sure hands. It is not an easy life, but it is better than the alternative. For a Roman boy without family or connections, there are few options to earn money. One can beg or steal, work as a slave, or find some small independent job. Most boys who end up working on the aqueducts are too young to enlist in the army, but this work is still dangerous. Accidents happen, and the aqueduct workers have a high mortality rate. When one of their number dies, there are no bells tolling or dirges sung. Another nameless boy, another brick in the wall. They are lucky if a kind master remembers to throw a bit of lead into the ditch to weigh them down before the fish eat them. The aqueduct worker walks along the raised roadbed, keeping an eye out for flaws in the structure. With so much of the aqueduct above ground, it is vulnerable to the elements and the occasional vandal. Sometimes entire arches collapse, taking tons of stonework with them. A recent storm has cracked the lead pipe along the top, so the aqueduct worker takes out his hammer and nails and patches it up. From here, he has a good view of the countryside. Fields stretch away to the hills, dotted with sheep and shepherds. Villas belonging to wealthy Romans are set further back from the road, hidden behind groves of olive trees. The aqueduct is a convenient place to take a break and enjoy the view, but he cannot linger here. There is work to be done. And as the sun climbs higher in the sky, the aqueduct worker gathers with the others for their midday meal. In this moment, they are not slaves, but boys enjoying a bit of stolen time. They pass around a loaf of stale bread and a jug of wine, laughing and talking about girls and the glories of Rome. For a brief moment, they are free. But soon it is time to go. They finish their wine, break their bread, and return to their work. Their laughter echoes along the aqueduct, but the shadows lengthen as the day grows old. As the light fades, the aqueduct worker hurries his steps. Soon it will be too dark to see, and the cold night air will bring dew and chill. He has finished his task for the day, and soon will reach the end of the aqueduct, where he can turn back towards home. The road is silent except for the sound of rushing water. The aqueduct worker breaks into a run, then stumbles and falls onto the cold stones, scraping his hands and knees. He looks up at the uncaring sky and lets out a long sigh. It is hard work, this endless duty. He wonders if the engineers ever think of him as they bathe in the luxurious public baths, washing the sweat and grime from their bodies. But it doesn't matter. He is here to serve the eternal city, and that is enough. Every year the aqueducts brought fresh water from the hills outside the city to the people of Rome. It was a long, hard journey for the water, a race against gravity all the way down from the mountains to the sea. But on the morning of the festival, the aqueducts were quiet. No great cascades of water tumbled into the public squares. No fountains sang their joyful songs. For today, the water was held. The people of Rome would have to wait. It was because of a leak. Someone had to tell the workers. The leak was not dramatic. It was not a torrent, a flood, or even a powerful stream. It was just a trickle. A little water escaping here, disappearing there, escaping here, disappearing there. But every drop mattered in a city that thirsted. So the boy ran, his sandals slapping against stone. Aqua, 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 echoing behind him. The warm air rose from the fields below, and in his hand he carried a small pouch of nails and a note tied with string. The note contained the emperor's orders, written on papyrus and sealed with red wax. But the leak could wait for the wax to dry. The emperor's messenger had to get to the site first. He ran along the maintenance path, scrambling up and over the great arches that carried the aqueduct across the valley. In the distance, he heard the hammering of the workers, the scraping of tools, the shouts of men. As he climbed higher, the sounds faded until all he could hear was the wind whispering through the arches and the steady beat of his own feet against stone. When he reached the top, he could see the leak. It was not much, just a few drops falling from a joint in the arch. But the boy knew better than to question the emperor's orders. He dropped to the bottom, landing lightly on his feet, and walked toward the men. They were older than him, most of them with leathery faces and strong arms. Their tunics were already smudged with dust, their sandals kicked to the side. They worked in the midday heat, mixing clay and mortar, setting braces in place, lifting clay tiles to expose the leak. The boy waited patiently, watching them work. Then he handed over the pouch of nails and the note tied with string. The men looked up, wiping sweat from their brows, and the leader read the emperor's message. "A leak in the aqueduct," he said, his voice raspy with thirst and age. "Of course there's a leak. What else did you expect?" He gestured to the boy with a sweep of his arm. "Go back to the city. Get us some water. We'll need it for the mortar." The boy nodded and turned to leave. But one of the older workers called out to him, "Wait, bring us water for the dust on our hands, too. This heat, it's a furnace." So the boy went back to the city, racing along the maintenance path, aqua, aqua, aqua echoing behind him, until he reached the fountain at the edge of the public square. There he filled his leather sack, then raced back to the aqueduct. The men were still there, working in the hot sun. They took the water, thanked him with grunts and gestures, and went back to their work. The boy waited again, watching them, learning from them, until the leak was patched and the aqueduct began to sing once more. Then he turned and ran, aqua, 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 echoing before him, all the way back to the city, where the people were waiting for the water to flow once more. And when the great cascade tumbled into the public square and the fountains sang their joyful songs, the boy smiled. He was just a small part of something big, a leak in the aqueduct, a trickle of water, a dusty road, a long walk. But all of it mattered in a city that thirsted. The Aqua Claudia was an aqueduct that brought fresh water into the city of Rome from a well over 100 kilometers away. Built in the late 1st century AD by the Flavian dynasty, the aqueduct had two main branches, the one to the southwest, supplying the Pincian Hill and the Forum, the other extending to the southeast, providing water to the Colosseum in the eastern neighborhoods. These two branches were connected by a third and shorter branch, which crossed the Forum Magnum. And this was also the point where the water from the Claudia met the water from another aqueduct, the Aqua Virgo. Our story today takes place right here at this intersection of aqueducts. We are going to meet a nameless character who, while unimportant in the grand scheme of things, still played an important part in maintaining the aqueduct. As the story begins, he's on his way up a ladder. His job today is to fix a leak near the top of the aqueduct. To do this, he'll have to climb up the side of the structure and make his way along the aqueduct's ledge. It's not a particularly pleasant task, but somebody has to do it. And with an aqueduct this big, it's usually one of the slaves or the freedmen who do the dirty work. But before we get too far into our story, I want to give a huge shout out to a supporter for their extremely generous donation. The support of you guys really does help me produce these videos, so thank you so much. Anyway, let's get back to our boy as he makes his way along the aqueduct. Here, the work is dangerous. One wrong step could send him plummeting to the ground below, but he doesn't seem to mind. In fact, he seems pretty calm as he balances himself on the scaffolding. At least he seems comfortable with how to carry his buckets. They aren't all that heavy, but they're certainly awkward to carry. But he manages with ease. Here again, I want to pause the action and really admire the artwork. The detail on both the aqueduct and the clothes of the characters are just fantastic. Take, for example, the folds in the tunic or the rope around his straw hat. All of these details help transport us back to ancient Rome. As he walks along the aqueduct, the artist gives us a little insight into his mind. We learn that he's not just carrying buckets for the sake of it. It's actually learning the craft of keeping water moving. The buckets may seem insignificant, but they're crucial for keeping the water flowing. Through the aqueduct, he is also learning the ins and outs of the aqueduct system, which must be an immense relief to the engineer in charge. By evening, he'll be able to tell if there's any leaks or breaks. He can report them to the aqueduct's manager, who will then dispatch someone to get the repairs done. Come across another group of workers who are preparing for the night. Their day is done, and soon they'll head home to rest. For now, though, they're cleaning up their tools and preparing for the next day's work. And finally, we get a look at the finished product. The leak is sealed, and the trickle is stopped. The aqueduct hums with hidden motion. Water slides silently within its channels. The boy is weary. His tunic is streaked with lime dust. His arms are scratched by stone. He's given a piece of bread, a nod of approval, and little more. No name is recorded, no statue carved, yet his small part helps sustain a city of 1,000,000 souls. I love this last line. It really drives home just how important the aqueduct was to the city of Rome. For without aqueducts like the Claudia, Rome simply couldn't have functioned. The fact that this nameless character helps sustain a city of 1,000,000 people is pretty cool if you ask me. For him, tomorrow will bring another errand, carrying notes, fetching tools, climbing ladders, perhaps running miles along the aqueduct's length. The Aqua Claudia endures, and so must he. His life is not marked by glory, but by rhythm. Small tasks repeated, essential but unnoticed, like water itself. I hope you enjoyed the artwork as much as I did. I think it's just amazing how the artist was able to capture the essence of daily life in ancient Rome. In the countryside beyond Rome, long before the aqueducts rose, water came from springs. Some were ordinary, bubbling quietly from the earth. Others were revered. Their waters were said to heal or protect or connect the living with the gods. Among these was one spring whose story still lingers, though the spring itself has disappeared. It was once called sacred. Pilgrims traveled to it, leaving offerings in clay pots. Coins, small figurines, bits of jewelry, tokens cast into the clear water as prayers for health or fortune. The spring was not large, but it was steady, and its flow carved a shallow pool in the ground. Families gathered there, believing the water carried blessings. Roman writers mention it only in passing, as if it were common knowledge, okay? A place where mothers brought sick children, where soldiers washed before departing on campaign, where whispers rose like mist from the surface. Archaeologists have found remnants nearby, fragments of pottery, eroded coins, pieces of votive statues. But the water itself is gone. This is the story of a lost spring. And this is the sound of water bubbling up from an ancient well in the Roman Forum. This is what the Forum sounded like when the Romans were here. Now listen to this. Can you hear that? That's the sound of water from a spring bubbling up in the Roman Forum. Listen again. Now that may not seem like much, just the sound of water bubbling up from the ground. But it's all we have left of this place, because the spring is dry now, and so is the nearby river Almo. What was once a sacred pool of water out here in the fields is nothing but a memory. But that doesn't mean that it's not real. The Romans knew about springs with healing powers. They built temples to springs with healing powers. They wrote about springs with healing powers. They knew that many springs contained, quote, medicinal waters. But they also believed that some springs were sacred. They didn't necessarily believe that the water had any special healing properties. They just believed that the springs themselves were holy places. Springs like the sacred source of the Nile near the town of Tivoli, which was associated with the god Neptune. Or the sacred fountain of the goddess Juno in the sanctuary of the Great Mother, where a terracotta pot was found filled with gold and silver coins and jewelry. Or here at the foot of the Alban Hill, where there was a spring sacred to the goddess Minerva, where people came to get her blessings on their way to Rome. But there was another spring here in the fields, outside the Porta Metronia gate, a spring with a pool that was open to everyone. No offerings were required. You didn't have to bring anything to receive its blessings. All you had to do was wash your hands and your face in its water. And according to legend, the water would purify you. It was good for everything, for cleaning, for healing, for luck. This is the spring that the Romans took for granted. They didn't need a priest or a temple to tell them that this was a holy place. They could just come here and experience the holiness for themselves. It's easy to dismiss this as just another example of Roman paganism. It's just another spring with magical water, just another story from ancient Rome. But that's the thing. We don't have many stories from ancient Rome. Most of what we know comes from people who weren't Roman. It's from Greeks and Egyptians and Mesopotamians, from the people who wrote about Rome and the Romans. But who were the Romans? Where did they come from? What was their everyday life like? Who were they as people? These are the kinds of questions that historians grapple with. And sometimes the answer can be as simple as a clay pot, a collection of coins, a few fragments of pottery, the kind of things that you might leave behind at a holy spring, the kind of things that archaeologists have found here in the fields outside the Porta Metronia gate. The Romans didn't build great monuments to this spring. They didn't leave behind any epic poems. They didn't write any hymns. They just showed up every day and washed their hands and drank the water. That's all we have. A few broken pieces of the everyday lives of ordinary Romans, but it's enough. It tells us that even in ancient Rome, people needed a place to wash their hands. It tells us that even the greatest empire in the world needed a place to take a break. It tells us that even the Romans needed a place like this, a place to remember that even though the water wasn't doing anything special, it was special because they made it that way. A long time ago, people gathered here. They came from all over to drink from this pool. It was magical, they said, and so was the spring that filled it. Legend has it that the spring water had special powers. People said that if you drank from it, you could see into the future. So those who came here to drink also came with questions, hoping the spring might offer an answer or two. But the longer they waited, the more impatient they became. They prodded the water with sticks and stones, and when that didn't work, they started to dig. First with their hands, then with bigger tools, until they had dug so far down that they hit bedrock. At that point, some gave up, believing the water simply wasn't there. Others kept digging, convinced they were close. And what did they find at the bottom of the hole? Another spring? No, this one didn't lead to the future, but it did have good water, fresh and cold. And since no one was looking for answers anymore, this new spring became a regular one, its magic forgotten, its legend fading. Some say an earthquake shifted the earth, sealing the channel that fed it. Others say that nearby construction, perhaps even the aqueduct itself, diverted the underground flow. Whatever the reason, the spring went dry sometime before the 12th century, when written records began. Over centuries, the memory faded. What had been a gathering place became just another patch of soil, dry and unremarkable, yet the legend endured. Locals spoke of hearing water underground, faint and distant, as if the spring still lived in darkness. Others believed it had retreated, offended by neglect. Even now, the site carries a quietness, a stillness that feels older than the land around it. The trees are slower to grow here, the grass less eager to green. There's a well at the center of the property, its bucket hanging still. At the bottom of that well, if you listen very closely, you can almost hear the whisper of flowing water just beyond the reach of human ears. As the old stories go, the spring is still here, waiting for someone to uncover its magic. No one knows exactly when that will be, or how. Perhaps it requires a drought to make the earth listen. Or maybe it takes a song, a story, a ritual to awaken the slumbering stones. In the meantime, the locals take what little water they need from the well, just enough to keep the legend alive. In fact, Many believe the spring will not be found by those who seek it, but by those who don't. You see, there's a difference between searching for magic and living with it. When we seek magic, we come with questions, demands, expectations. When we live with it, we bring an open mind, a willingness to listen, a spirit of play. The magic, as they say, is in the mystery. Still, there are times when we all need a little extra help, when the path ahead seems dark and uncertain. For those times, I've prepared a special gift. A few years ago, my team and I recorded a guided meditation that takes you on a journey deep into the earth. There you'll meet the elemental beings who dwell beneath our feet, the guardians of the natural world. Our energy will surround you, uplift you, restore you. You can use this meditation whenever you feel depleted, disconnected, or in need of renewal. It's my gift to you. A way of saying thank you for your support and a reminder that you are always connected to the ancient wisdom of the earth. This is a place where time has left its brushstrokes, weather-beaten stones, remnants of a bygone era, silent sentinels guarding secrets of the past. I stand before them, dwarfed by their immensity, contemplating the echoes of laughter, the whispers of love, the murmur of everyday life that once resonated within these ancient walls. Each stone monolith is a poem, an ode to an age when life unfolded at a different cadence. I trace the contours of a weathered lintel, imagining the hands that crafted it, the tools they wielded, the sun beating down on their backs as they labored. The air is thick with the scent of antiquity, of ages past, whispering tales on the wind. A lone lizard darts across the stones, seeking refuge from the sun's relentless glare. I'm gonna I got when I come good I'm a got where I got da we da wa da stop by what I. My gaze falls upon an offering found buried in the earth. A child's figurine of clay, its surface worn smooth by countless hands. It speaks of a time when people sought solace here, when their hopes and dreams mingled with the water's gentle flow. Beside it, a small bronze coin, its visage obscured by time, glistens in the sunlight, silent testament to an economy long since forgotten. Nearby, a carved stone, its edges softened by the relentless caress of time, may have once been part of a larger structure. Perhaps an altar where rituals were performed, where prayers were whispered. It is a tangible link to a past so distant it seems unreal, yet so vital to understanding the tapestry of human existence. In the absence of flowing water, the spring's story unfolds in fragments like fallen stars scattered across the earth. Its tale is etched not in stone, but in the memories of those who came before. To stand here is to wonder how many feet once gathered at its edge. How many prayers, whispered with hope, dissolved into its cool depths. How many lives reached out to touch its waters, seeking renewal, finding solace in its embrace. Unlike temples which leave behind ruins of columns and walls, a vanished spring offers no physical trace, no visible scars upon the land. It leaves behind a silence that speaks volumes, a void where water once flowed, a song unsung. You cannot trace its arches or foundations. All that remains is the echo of its laughter, the ghost of children's play, the lingering scent of flowers that adorned its banks. I close my eyes, imagining the spring's vibrant past. I see it reflected in the depths of a dark pool, a mirror to a bygone era. In this timeless tableau, I envision the gentle sway of palm trees, the soft murmur of a trickling spring, the interplay of light and shadow on its surface. I hear the joyous chatter of villagers, their voices mingling with the melody of birds overhead. I see young lovers stealing glances, their hearts beating in unison with the rhythm of the spring. I see it all, yet I know it only half exists within the confines of my imagination. and then I open my eyes, returning to the silent ruins, the missing spring. For in reality, it is nothing but a memory, a whisper on the wind. Yet its absence echoes more profoundly than if it still flowed. It is a potent reminder that even water, which feels eternal, can vanish quietly, leaving only fragments behind. As the sun begins its slow descent, casting long shadows across the ruins, I am filled with a profound sense of loss, a grief for a vanishing way of life. But it is also a humbling experience to stand here, to feel the weight of centuries upon my shoulders. To know that I am only a fleeting visitor in a place where time itself seems suspended. And as the final rays of sunlight touch the weathered stones, I carry with me the spring's timeless wisdom. A reminder that even in the face of impermanence, life finds a way to endure, to adapt, and to persevere. Emperor Nero's 8-year-old daughter, Princess Julia, stomped her foot impatiently at the edge of the marble fountain. She dipped her toes into the cool water and sighed. It was so refreshing, but the water wasn't cold enough. So like any impatient child, she did what any resourceful 8-year-old would do. She took a handful of pebbles and started dropping them into the water one by one. A small pebble skipped across the surface, sending tiny ripples out in all directions. Another hit the water squarely, sending up a miniature spray. And then splash. A third pebble sent up a small geyser that drenched her hand in cold water. As Princess Julia splashed in the shallows, others hurried through the echoing halls of the baths, their footsteps ringing like hammers against the polished marble. Some hurried to complete their daily ablutions before the morning heat became unbearable. Others ambled along, taking their time to greet friends, or perhaps haggle over the price of a slave. The wealthy patron might have strolled in wearing a fine linen tunic and sandals, but he would likely leave the baths, wrapped in a simple white toga, his status symbolized by the golden ring on his finger or the purple stripe across his shoulder. These were the thermae, the public bathhouses that dotted the Roman landscape. Here, marble pillars and vaulted ceilings soared skyward, their surfaces decorated with frescoes or intricate mosaics. Sunlight streamed in through glass windows set high in the walls, filtered through sheets of colored glass that bathed the interior in soft hues. The wealthy came to the baths to socialize, to do business, and yes, to bathe. For them, the bath was a ritual, a rhythm woven into the fabric of daily life. A well-to-do Roman might visit the baths twice a day, once in the morning and again in the late afternoon. He would begin his day with a dip in the frigidarium, the cold bath, plunging himself into a pool of icy water so cold it was almost freezing. This was no mere shower. It was a shock to the system, a jolt of invigorating cold that made the skin tight and the pores contract, thus expelling dirt and dead skin. After the frigidarium came the tepidarium, the lukewarm bath, where the patron would relax and allow the heat to open his pores. Finally, it was on to the caldarium, the hot bath, where the heat was so intense it could induce sweating and even lower blood pressure. The patron would recline on a marble bench while slaves scrubbed his body with a rough brush, removing the thick, sometimes greasy outer layer of skin. The process was as much a social event as a cleansing one. Slaves passed around perfume for the patrons to anoint themselves, and conversation flowed as easily as the wine that slaves poured. For the wealthy, bathing was an art form, an elaborate production conducted in a series of precisely heated rooms. But for many Romans, bathing was a chore, necessity of daily life that had to be done to avoid the stench of stale sweat and unwashed body odor. These folks didn't have fancy bathhouses at their disposal. Instead, they relied on public baths, attached to public spaces like the forum or the marketplace. Because there was no room for privacy, these baths were segregated by gender. Women bathed in one room, while men shared another. They would scrub each other's backs with a rough piece of pumice stone, scrape away the dead skin, and slap on a coating of oil. They would massage it in vigorously, then scrape it off and voila, a clean body. In fact, the oil was saved and used for days, sometimes weeks. The patrons who frequented these public baths were as diverse as the crowds that filled the Roman streets. There were merchants and artisans, soldiers and politicians, freedmen and slaves. All had one thing in common, a need to clean. One man emerged from the caldarium, his skin glowing in the dim light. As he walked past the frigidarium, he couldn't help but shiver. A cold bath would feel so good right now, he thought. But he resisted the urge and hurried out into the bustling city, eager to get home and change before the midday sun became too much to bear. The scent of oil and lavender clung to him, a subtle reminder of his moment of relaxation in the heart of the noisy, dusty city. Servants moved quietly, carrying towels, pouring water into basins, arranging oils in small flasks. The visitor need only extend a hand, and another is ready to serve. A wealthy senator might recline as attendants rub oil into his skin and scrape it away with curved strigils, leaving the body refreshed. Others sink slowly into heated pools, the marbles smooth beneath their hands, the water perfectly warmed by underground furnaces tended by unseen workers. The air is thick with the scent of cedar wood and roses, mingling with the aroma of burning frankincense. Laughter echoes through the vaulted ceiling as friends meet up, catching each other's eye across the crowded room. Some speak in hushed tones, eager to share gossip or news from the provinces. Others call out greetings, embracing warmly and slapping each other on the back. There are those who simply stand apart, silent and observant, taking in the lively scene before them. A young man approaches, his tunic shimmering with jewels, his hair slicked back with fragrant oil. He stops to chat, his eyes twinkling with amusement. He speaks of gladiators locked in fierce combat, of chariots thundering around the Circus Maximus, of senators scheming in the forum. His voice is like honey, his words carefully chosen, his gestures exaggerated for effect. Around him, the crowd parts like the Red Sea, opening a path for his progress. All want to be near him, to catch his eye, to hear his infectious laughter. Nearby, an old man sits wrapped in a purple cloak, his face etched with wrinkles, his eyes cloudy with age. He leans heavily on a cane, his gait unsteady, his voice a dry, crackling sound. He speaks of a different time, of gods and heroes, of battles and feasts. The young man listens intently, hanging on every word. The old man's tales are legendary, his voice a living link to the past. And though his words may seem like ancient history, they resonate with a timeless truth that touches the hearts of all who hear them. Suddenly, the old man falters, his hands slipping from the cane. The young man rushes to his side, concern etched on his face. He helps the old man to his feet, supporting him with a gentle hand on his shoulder. Together, they walk on, two figures silhouetted against the fading light, the past and the future linked in an embrace. On a raised dais, musicians play, their instruments blending in a harmonious melody that fills the hall. A flute trills a playful tune, a lyre adds a touch of sweetness, and drums provide a steady beat. The music flows around the guests, weaving its magic, lilting and enchanting, drawing the listener into its embrace. The dancers twirl and leap, their movements fluid and graceful. They glide across the floor, their feet barely touching the marble tiles, their bodies swaying in perfect rhythm with the music. Their costumes shimmer and flow, adorned with jewels and gold thread, catching the light with every twirl. At the center of it all stands the host, a middle-aged man with a commanding presence, his toga draped elegantly over his arm. He watches the dancers with a proud smile, his eyes twinkling with amusement, raises his glass in a toast, and the crowd joins him, their voices ringing with laughter and applause. For this night is one to remember, a celebration of life, a tribute to the gods, a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. And as the music swells and the dancers spin, the party rages on. A kaleidoscope of human emotion and experience, a celebration of the beauty and power of life itself. This is the third room in the Roman bathhouse. The other two rooms were the frigidarium and the tepidarium. This is the caldarium. This room is all about the experience of heat. As you enter, the first thing you notice is the low ceiling. This was done on purpose to make the space feel more intimate, more focused, to draw your attention to the sensations all around you. The room is filled with the heavy scent of steam. The air is thick and still. It's the kind of heat that clings to your skin and makes you sweat. There's a single opening in the ceiling, an oculus, which lets the light in and also acts as a chimney to draw the air up and out. The patrons in this room are languid and relaxed. Some are lounging on the couches, their bodies heavy with sleep. Others are lying down on the marble table, their heads resting on pillows. Some are even taking the plunge into the plunge pool, the cold water a shock to the system after the previous 2 rooms. But the patrons don't seem to mind. They're here for the experience, not just to bathe. It's a place to socialize, to catch up on gossip, to make new friends, to have an affair, to escape the noise and the chaos of the city. Here in the heart of the empire, even the emperor's son could find some peace and quiet. The walls are covered with paintings, some of them erotic, some of them just there to please the eye. The floor is decorated with mosaics depicting scenes from Greek mythology. There's a fountain in the corner, its water cascading down into a pool below. The sound of the water is soothing, its movement a welcome distraction from the oppressive heat. Time seems to slow down in this room. People linger here for hours, sometimes even days, just to soak up the atmosphere, to feel the heat on their skin. They come here to relax, to unwind, to forget about the outside world. For some, it's a place of business. Here deals are made and fortunes are won and lost. But for most, it's just a place to get away from it all. A place where you can be yourself without judgment. A place where you can escape the cold, hard reality of life in the Roman Empire. So if you ever find yourself in ancient Rome and you're feeling a little stressed out, a little tired, a little in need of some pampering, head on down to the nearest bathhouse and book yourself a session in the Caldarium. You deserve it. The walls are hot, the company is even hotter, and the steamy, fragrant air will melt your cares away. Here, water is not weight to be carried, nor burden to be balanced up endless stairs. It is abundance, surrounding the body, easing tired limbs. The effort belongs to others. The slaves who shovel fuel into furnaces. The attendants who refill basins. The unseen laborers who maintain the aqueducts that feed these endless baths. For the bather, there is only comfort. Turn off the news. You need to hear this. This is Rome. You're in the bathhouse. Steam rises from the marble, carrying with it the scent of cedar wood and lavender. The floor beneath your feet is heated. The worn flagstones seem to know your weight even before you step upon them. The air is warm and soft, inviting you to let go of the day's tensions. The anxieties that have knotted your shoulders, the frustrations that have clenched your jaw. Here the worries of the world melt away like wax in the sun. Your head swims with the heat, the scent of the burning cedar wood and the sound of your own breathing. Your muscles, they feel like they could burst from their confines. So tense are they. With a sigh, you sink down onto the marble slab, letting the warmth seep into your bones. Around you, men, some young, some old, some of noble birth, others clearly not. Shed the grime of the day and the week and the year from their bodies. They too are letting go. The first stones are set in place around you. Cool water trickles over your skin, washing away the sweat and the dirt of the road. You close your eyes, savoring the feeling of being utterly clean, utterly cared for. In this moment, you are more alive than you have ever been. Every nerve ending, every muscle, every bone sings with the effortlessness of it all. A slave girl, no more than a child really, dips a cloth in a nearby basin and begins the slow, careful task of removing the dead skin from your heels and the grime from your toes. She works with the practiced hands of one who has done this countless times before. Each scrape, each rub, each pat is a small victory over the grime and dirt of the road. You lean back against the wall, letting the heat embrace you, letting the scent of lavender and cedarwood fill your head. For a brief moment, you forget the weight of your worries. The anxieties that have gnawed at your insides loosen their grip. The frustration that has coiled in your gut unwinds a little. In the distance, you hear the clang of a hammer on metal, the shouts of men working, the scrape of tools on stone.
Ow.
These are the sounds of the city, of the world outside this haven of warmth and steam. They fade away, becoming nothing more than a distant hum. You are here now, in this moment, and in this moment, there is only peace. A peace that settles over you like the steam, warming your skin, filling your lungs, soothing your soul. When you were born, your mother cradled you, her touch gentle, her eyes filled with wonder. In that moment, you felt nothing but safety. The world was a blur of sights and sounds, but her touch anchored you, calmed you, reassured you. As you grew, you learn to walk, to talk, to laugh. And with each new milestone, your mother was there, her pride evident in her smile, her support unwavering in her actions. She taught you the world, not as a scary, chaotic place, but as a place filled with wonder and possibility. And then you grew older, much older. Life had etched its story on your face, each line, each wrinkle, a testament to a laugh, a tear, a dream, a worry. But in the tapestry of your life, your mother's love remained a constant thread, binding you, guiding you, comforting you. Now, in the twilight of your years, you find yourself once again enveloped in warmth. Not the warmth of the sun, but the warmth of human touch. In this moment, you realize that life is a bathhouse, a place of cleansing and renewal. The harshness of the world, the grime of existence, the dirt of life's journey, it's all washed away here. And in that washing, you are reminded of your mother's love, the purest, warmest love you've ever known. For in this place of cleansing, you are not just an old man, you are a son, cherished and loved. The weight of years, the burden of memories, the tiredness of the long road, they're all eased by the touch of another. And in that ease, you find a new strength, a renewed spirit. This is the gift of human touch, the solace of shared existence. The comfort of knowing you're not alone in the grand bathhouse of life. In the heart of the bustling city, hidden away on a quiet cobblestone street, lies a sanctuary of tranquility. A place where weary travelers and local aristocrats alike come to unwind. This is the Marble Bathhouse, an establishment unlike any other, where the pursuit of cleanliness is interwoven with the pleasure of fine dining and the art of socializing. As soon as you step inside, you are greeted by the sight of glistening marble everywhere, from the floor to the walls to the rooftop. Sunlight streams through the skylights, casting a soft glow on the scene before you. The air is filled with the scent of fresh linen and the sound of trickling water. It is a place where the worries of the outside world can be left at the door, and where guests are free to indulge in the simple pleasures of life. Your journey begins with a selection of appetizers served on trays of fruit, honeyed cakes, and small cups of wine. Conversation drifts lazily between politics and poetry, business and idle gossip. Laughter echoes through the bathhouse as friendships are forged and alliances are made. It is a place where the boundaries between strangers are blurred, and where everyone is welcome to partake in the communal experience. When the time is right, you are led to the baths themselves, a series of pools and fountains that are fed by natural hot springs. The water is a perfect temperature, not too hot, not too cold, and it envelops your body in a soothing embrace. As you relax, a gentle massage will work out any tension you may have, leaving you feeling rejuvenated and ready to take on the world again. In the Greek and Roman cultures, baths were an integral part of daily life. They were a place for cleansing the body, but also for socializing and conducting business. The Marble Bathhouse aims to recreate this ancient tradition, a place where you can refresh yourself and connect with others. As evening approaches, the bathhouse comes alive with a new energy. The marble glistens under the lamplight, and the water still trickles down the stone walls, creating a soothing echo that lulls you into a state of pure relaxation. The scent of lavender and chamomile fills the air as the staff prepare for the evening's festivities. Candles are lit, casting a warm glow over the marble surfaces and bathing the space in a sense of intimacy. The evening's entertainment begins with live music, the gentle melodies of a harp or the soulful sounds of a flute. The music sets the perfect ambience for the night, inviting guests to let go of their troubles and immerse themselves in the moment. Some choose to dance, twirling and leaping with abandon as the rhythm takes hold. Others simply sway to the music, letting the notes wash over them like waves on a summer's day. For those seeking a more intimate experience, the bathhouse offers private rooms with jacuzzis and steam rooms. Here you can enjoy the warmth of the water and the dry heat of the steam, allowing your body to fully relax and rejuvenate. It's the perfect way to unwind after a long day of exploring the city or conducting business. As the night wears on, the conversation turns to more serious topics: philosophy and religion, love and loss. In the flickering lamplight, guests share their deepest thoughts and feelings, forging bonds that will last long after the night is over. But for some, the night is not about the company or the entertainment. For them, the baths themselves are the ultimate attraction. The simple pleasure of floating in warm water, surrounded by the soft glow of candlelight, is enough to send them into a state of pure bliss. These individuals seek solitude, a chance to disconnect from the world and reconnect with themselves. And the bathhouse provides the perfect setting for this kind of introspection. As the night draws to a close, guests begin to make their way back to the dressing rooms. The echo of their footsteps on the marble stairs is a fitting end to a perfect evening. One by one, they disappear behind the curtains, each taking with them the memories of a night well spent. And so the marble bathhouse closes for the evening, its marble surfaces gleaming in the moonlight, its fountains overflowing with the promise of another day of relaxation and rejuvenation. For those who have experienced the magic of this place, it is a memory that will last a lifetime. The warmth of the baths, the laughter of friends, the wisdom of the ancients, all come together to create an experience that is truly one of a kind. The year is 97 AD. It is hot. It is very hot. The sun beats down on the teeming crowds of Rome. A wealthy Roman male is strolling through the city. In his hand, he holds a small silver flask. The single hand gesture, he has his slave fill the fountain before him with fresh spring water. Takes a long drink, cool and sweet on his tongue. For the wealthy Roman, this was water's gift, abundance without effort, comfort without cost. But for those who carried buckets or patched leaks or watched springs vanish, the story was a different one. For them, water was not a luxury, was a necessity, hard-won and ever in doubt. But here in the bathhouse, surrounded by warmth and marble, that struggle was far away. And so the contrast lingers. Water in Rome was both burden and blessing, labor and leisure. To carry it was exhausting. To enjoy it was serene. In between the two, an entire city lived, its rhythms sustained by flows both seen and unseen. Welcome to my channel. Today we're exploring what water means for ancient Rome. Water in ancient Rome was a paradox, a source of both great wealth and great poverty. It flowed through the hands of emperors and the fingers of beggars alike. But where did it come from? How was it distributed? And what did it mean for the people of Rome? In order to answer these questions, we're going to do something a little bit different. This video is structured around 3 different perspectives on water in ancient Rome. These are fictional characters that I created based on archaeological evidence and historical writings. They represent a cross-section of Roman society. Each one tells us something about how water shaped life in ancient Rome. Our first character is a wealthy landowner. Let's call him Titus. Titus lives in the countryside outside of Rome, but he spends part of every year in the bustling capital. He owns several houses there, but his favorite is his villa near the baths of Caracalla. He loves to start his day with a trip to the public baths. In the 1st century AD, the Emperor Nero built a series of aqueducts that brought fresh water to Rome from miles outside the city. The water flowed into large public baths, like the ones near Titus's villa. Here, wealthy Romans like Titus came to relax in the warm, fragrant water, enjoying massages and socializing with friends. Life was good for Titus. His sprawling villa had running water thanks to the Aqua Virgo, one of the aqueducts built during Nero's reign. He never had to worry about collecting water or hauling it to his house. It just flowed from the taps as if by magic. But not all Romans were so lucky. Meet our next character, a water carrier. We don't know her name, but we know that she is strong and determined. She is in her early 20s and has been carrying water since she was a teenager. Every morning at dawn, she leaves her home with an empty bucket and heads to the nearest public fountain. There she fills up her bucket and begins the long walk home. Along the way, she passes grand public buildings constructed from gleaming marble, monuments to the power and wealth of Rome. But the water that fills them comes from the same aqueducts that sustain the countryside. Everyone in Rome depends on these aqueducts, rich or poor. But for the water carriers, they are especially vital. Without them, there would be no water in the fountains and no water in their homes. Yet the water carrier's life is not easy. The lead pipes that bring water to the public fountains are often corroded and the water is undrinkable. She must boil it at home to make it safe. Even worse, droughts are common in Rome and the aqueducts sometimes run dry. When that happens, the water carrier must get up earlier and walk farther to find water. Sometimes she even has to leave Rome altogether and find water in the hills outside the city. Despite the hardship, the water carrier has hope. She has heard the emperor talking about building a new aqueduct that will bring fresh water to the city. If he does, her life will be a little easier. But not everyone is so hopeful. Meet our third character. He is a former slave who now works as a plumber. He is in his late 30s and lives in a small apartment with his wife and kids. Not long ago, he was a slave, but his master freed him and taught him the trade of plumbing. Now he works repairing the aqueducts that bring water to Rome. But lately, the work hasn't been good. More and more frequently, he finds that the lead pipes are corroded and leaking. The damage goes deeper than he can fix. The aqueducts are old, and they're wearing out. If the emperor doesn't invest in repairs, the water could stop flowing entirely. But the emperor has other priorities right now. He is more interested in building monuments to himself than fixing the water system. So the aqueducts fall into further disrepair. And as the water flows less reliably through the aging pipes, the people of Rome grow more desperate. Meanwhile, the water carrier continues her daily routine, hauling water to her apartment and boiling it over the fire. She dreams of a day when she won't have to carry water or boil it. But for now, she is grateful for the aqueducts that bring water to the city. They may not always work, but they are a lifeline for her and her family. Rome's aqueducts were a remarkable feat of engineering, bringing fresh water to the city from dozens of miles away. They made possible the public baths, the fountains, and the steady supply of water that sustained the city. But the aqueducts were not a solution to the water problem. Rather, they were a band-aid on a gaping wound. The water that flowed through the aqueducts came from the same sources that supplied the countryside. And as the population of Rome grew, so did the demands on those resources. So what happened? Did the water problem eventually overwhelm Rome? You'll have to tune in next time to find out. Thanks for watching.